Hey everyone, in this video today I'm going to be comparing the Spider-Man standalone films, not including the Sony Spider-Man Universe films, just the Sam Raimi trilogy, the two Mark Webb films, the MCU trilogy, and the two Spider-Verse films, comparing that to the 10 Planet of the Apes movies. First round, we're going to look at the highest score for each franchise. Right now, when you look at the Spider-Man franchise, Into the Spider-Verse has the highest Rotten Tomatoes score, 97%. With Planet of the Apes, right now, War for the Planet of the Apes has the highest score, 94%. So Spider-Man wins this round. Next, we're going to look at the lowest score for each franchise. When it comes to Spider-Man, right now, Amazing Spider-Man 2 has the lowest score, 51%. When you look at Planet of the Apes, you got a 36% for Battle of the Planet of the Apes. That's the lowest score for that franchise. So Spider-Man again wins this round because 51 is higher than 36. Next, we're going to look at the average score for each franchise. Once again, the Spider-Man franchise wins because it right now has an average score of 83.6%. Think about it this way, only one of the Spider-Man standalone films is rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. Even Spider-Man 3 is actually fresh with a 63%. When you look at Planet of the Apes, you got an average score of 67.7. Not really surprising because you have only a 43% for Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes, 36 for Battle, and then 1 point higher than that, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, with only a 37%. So already, Spider-Man's going to win this debate. Next, we're going to look at how much of a disparity is there between the lowest and highest score. When it comes to the Spider-Man standalone films, 51 to 97, so there's a gap of 46 between the two. When you look at Planet of the Apes, lowest score is 36, highest score is 94. So you have a gap of 58. So the gap is lower for Spider-Man, and thus it once again wins the round. But next, we're going to look at my personal opinion. Which franchise do I prefer? And I actually prefer the Planet of the Apes franchise. I think the biggest reason why is because with Planet of the Apes, you had Rise back in 2011, which really revitalized the franchise and brought it back. After that, you've had Dawn, War, and Kingdom. I think those are all great movies. So with Planet of the Apes, you have 4 films in a row that I think are great. Spider-Man has never been able to be that consistent because Spider-Man 3 was a big disappointment. And I'm not a big fan of either Amazing Spider-Man movie. And then I think Far From Home is the weakest movie in the MCU trilogy. Don't get me wrong, it's fun to watch. It's entertaining. There are effective moments of humor. Jake Gyllenhaal gives a great performance. That Mysterio illusion scene in the middle of the movie is great. But I don't think that the plot makes any sense at all. What I'm talking about here is this idea that Tony Stark, for some reason, thinks, how about I entrust these military-grade glasses? This is technology that obviously has a lot of power to it, so I should not be making this decision lightly. But for some reason, rather than Tony realizing, you know what, I could give these glasses to my best friend Rhodey, my wife Pepper Potts, or Happy Hogan, who's worked with me for years, he gives them to an immature and inexperienced high school student like Peter Parker, who clearly lacks the maturity and judgment required to handle this level of power responsibly. We see that in the movie. Peter almost gets a classmate of his killed. Also, Tony leaves the glasses behind without any instructions? What? Also, think about this. Peter turned to dust at the end of Infinity War, so he was dust for 5 years, and yet Tony gives the glasses to him? What? That puts Tony in such a bad light, because it means, oh, Tony did something this shockingly reckless. And also, when it comes to Mysterio, as much as Gyllenhaal makes the character fun to watch, it's like, seriously, we again have a villain that was burned by Tony in the past and thus holds a grudge against him? How many times have we done this in the MCU? Multiple times. And also, think about his plan. for a minute. Mysterio wants to be this fake superhero. What exactly is he going to do when an actual threat shows up? An actual supervillain that has powers who is a threat to the Earth. What is Mysterio going to do? He's an ordinary man without any abilities. He just knows how to create illusions. The jig's going to be up for him really quickly, because when that happens, it's going to be very apparent very quickly. Oh, this guy doesn't actually have any powers. So I think Far From Home ultimately is an okay movie. I don't think it's a disaster, but I think it's not as good as Homecoming and No Way Home. To be clear, I have issues with the setup of No Way Home. I think it's very flimsy. This idea that despite Stephen Strange being a sorcerer for years, so at the time of No Way Home, he has a lot of experience, he's an adult, and yet for some reason, he is so shockingly stupid and reckless that he says, you know what, I'm going to tamper with the minds of millions, billions of people because this high school kid is bummed out he's not going to be able to get into college. What? Also, think about this. Stephen Strange doesn't realize, you know what, me and Peter should take just a few minutes to talk about the parameters of the spell before we start it. And then, oh, Peter just can't shut up, and so the spell goes out of whack. I don't like that at all because it feels really lazy, like the filmmakers didn't take enough time to actually think about the setup that they would do in the movie in order to get to the payoff they wanted to get to. The payoff is great, so I still think No Way Home is a very good movie. I don't think it's a great movie. When it comes to the Planet of the Apes franchise, I think that Beneath and Battle for the Planet of the Apes are clearly the weakest films in that original run, those original 5 movies. Beneath the Planet of the Apes goes in this very weird direction with these humans that are mutated. Battle for the Planet of the Apes is trying to tell this big epic story with a really small budget. So you can just see on screen the shrinking budget. And I think the biggest problem with Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes is how much it just falls flat. It's just such a generic movie. But I think that out of 10 movies, 7 of them are at least good. Some of them are great. Only 3 films I'm not a fan of. So I think Planet of the Apes is more consistent than the Spider-Man franchise. But that'll be it for now.